For context, I, 34F, have been married to my husband David, 45M, for 3 years, together for 5. He has a 19-year-old son Nathan from his previous marriage. David's first wife passed away from cancer when Nathan was 7, and it was obviously devastating for both of them. I met David through mutual friends at a charity event 5 years ago when he was working as a marketing executive at a well-known tech company. Our relationship started slowly. David was very upfront about his past and Nathan's situation from the beginning. He told me that Nathan was still processing his mother's death and that any new relationship would be challenging for him. We dated for 6 months before he introduced me to Nathan, wanting to make sure we were serious first. The first meeting with Nathan was tense but manageable. He was 14 at the time and clearly unhappy about his father dating again. He barely spoke to me that day, but at least he wasn't openly hostile. David had prepared me for worse, so I considered it a small victory. I never tried to be Nathan's mother or even attempted to build a close relationship with him. I just aimed to be a respectful, supportive presence in his life. The first few years were actually pretty good. David was successful in his career, making good money, and even though Nathan was distant, he was at least civil. We got married after 2 years of dating, and Nathan attended the wedding without making a scene, which David considered a huge improvement in his attitude. Everything started changing 2 years ago. David had always talked about wanting to start his own business, but I thought it was just a dream he liked to discuss over dinner. Then one day, he came home extremely excited about a potential business opportunity. He had met some potential clients who were interested in his marketing expertise, and he was convinced this was his chance to start his own consultancy. At first, I supported his enthusiasm. He had 15 years of experience in the field and good industry connections. He presented me with a detailed business plan that seemed solid. He wanted to use his savings for the startup costs, and since we were both earning well, I agreed it was worth trying. David quit his job and launched his consultancy. He was so passionate and optimistic, working long hours to get things started. The initial response seemed positive, with several potential clients showing interest. But then things started going wrong. Projects fell through, clients backed out, and new leads became scarce. David kept saying he just needed more time to establish himself in the market. I didn't worry too much initially. I had a stable job as a financial analyst with a good salary, and I figured we could manage on my income until his business picked up. David promised it was temporary and that he would pay back any money I contributed to our expenses. But months went by, and nothing improved. David kept making excuses. The market was tough, he needed to adjust his strategy, he was close to landing big clients. He refused to consider looking for a regular job again, saying it would mean giving up on his dream. Meanwhile, I was paying for everything: our mortgage, utilities, groceries, car payments, and even Nathan's college tuition. Nathan was completely unaware of all this. David was embarrassed about living off my income and begged me not to tell Nathan about the business struggles. He said it would devastate Nathan to know his father was failing, especially since Nathan had always looked up to him as a successful businessman. I agreed to keep quiet, thinking I was protecting both their relationship and David's dignity as a father. The real problem started when Nathan came home for summer break last month. He's in his second year of college, and this was his first extended stay at home since David's business started struggling. One morning, he overheard me having a serious discussion with David about the business. I was trying to convince David to be realistic and consider returning to a corporate job since we couldn't sustain our lifestyle on just my income anymore. Nathan completely misunderstood the conversation. He assumed I was a gold digger trying to control his father's career for money. He started making snide comments whenever I was around, usually about women who marry successful men for their money. I tried to ignore it initially, not wanting to break my promise to David about keeping our financial situation private. The situation kept escalating. Nathan would roll his eyes whenever I spoke about work, make sarcastic comments about my shopping habits, even though I'd actually cut back significantly to support David's business, and generally treat me with contempt. The final straw came last week when I asked him to help with some household chores since I was working long hours to support everyone. He refused, saying he wouldn't take orders from someone who only married his father for money and was now trying to control him. I finally lost my patience. I pulled out my laptop and showed him all our bank statements from the past 2 years, my salary deposits, my payments for household expenses, and most importantly, my payments for his college tuition. I showed him how his father's business had barely generated any income, and how I had been supporting both of them all this time. Nathan was stunned. He tried to argue at first, but the evidence was right there in front of him. When David came home and found out what I'd done, he was furious that I had revealed everything to Nathan. We had a huge argument, with David accusing me of trying to turn his son against him. I packed my bags that night and moved to a hotel. I couldn't take the disrespect anymore, especially after supporting them both financially for so long while keeping quiet about it. I contacted a divorce lawyer the next day. David has been calling and texting constantly, begging me to come back. Nathan also reached out, apologizing profusely and admitting he was wrong. But I noticed his apology focused mainly on being worried about his college tuition payments. Neither of them seemed genuinely sorry for how they had treated me. I told David the first wanted a divorce and would be seeking repayment of all the money I spent supporting them. He's now telling everyone that I'm heartless for abandoning him when his business was struggling. Some mutual friends are taking his side, saying I should have been more patient and supportive of his dreams. But I feel I was patient enough. I supported them financially for 2 years while enduring disrespect from Nathan and watching David make excuse after excuse for his failing business. Ida for finally standing up for myself and revealing the truth? Some people are asking why I stayed so long if things were so bad. I genuinely loved David and wanted to support his dreams. I also felt responsible for Nathan's education since I had promised to help with it. I know now that I let myself be taken advantage of, but at the time, I thought I was just being a supportive wife and stepmother. Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and advice really helped me stay strong during these difficult weeks. A lot has happened since then, and unfortunately, things have gotten much worse than I initially thought. The day after I moved to the hotel, I had my first meeting with a divorce lawyer. She advised me to gather all financial documents from the past few years, bank statements, credit card bills, property documents, everything. When I logged into our joint accounts to download the statements, I noticed some strange transactions I hadn't paid attention to before. There were regular transfers from David's business account to another account I didn't recognize. They weren't huge amounts, usually between $500 to $1,000, but they had been happening consistently for over a year. When I mentioned this to my lawyer, she immediately started investigating. It turns out David had opened a separate personal account without my knowledge. He had been directing some of the little income his business generated into this account while letting me cover all household expenses. When confronted about this, his response made me realize just how naive I'd been. He claimed it was his right to keep some personal money since it came from his business. He didn't see anything wrong with making me pay for everything while he squirreled away money for himself. I also discovered that he had been using this money for completely unnecessary expenses. He had bought new golf clubs, joined an expensive country club, and even taken several weekend trips with his business contacts that I knew nothing about. All while I was working overtime to pay our bills and Nathan's tuition. Speaking of Nathan, he's been caught in the middle of this mess. After learning about his father's hidden account, he moved out of David's house. He's staying with his aunt, David's sister, now. He's been texting me almost daily about his tuition situation. While I feel bad for him, he is just a kid who got caught in his father's lies. I had to be firm. I told him he needs to figure out his college funding on his own. He can take loans like most students do, or maybe his father can use some of that hidden money to help him. The most shocking revelation came when David's sister Sarah reached out to me. She had been helping Nathan settle in at her place, and during one of their conversations, she learned the full story of what happened. She called me immediately to share something that left me speechless. Apparently, this wasn't the first time David had done this. During his marriage to his late wife Lisa, he had also quit his job to start a business. This was about 15 years ago, when Nathan was very young. The business failed miserably, but David refused to give up on it. Lisa, who was working as a nurse then, supported the family for almost 2 years while battling early stages of cancer. She eventually had to convince David to go back to corporate work because her health was deteriorating and they needed stable income and insurance. David had never mentioned this to me during our relationship. He had always talked about his previous business attempt as a brief, failed experiment that he gave up quickly when it didn't work out. He completely left out the part about Lisa supporting him through it or how his stubbornness had added financial stress to her illness. Sarah apologized for not warning me earlier. She said she thought David had learned his lesson after Lisa passed away, especially since he had maintained steady employment for many years after that. She never imagined he would repeat the same pattern with me. This information changed everything for me. What I thought was just poor business judgment and pride was actually a pattern of behavior. David was willing to let the women in his life sacrifice everything for his unrealistic dreams, all while hiding money for himself. My lawyer is now preparing documentation of all my financial contributions over the past 2 years. We're also investigating whether there are other hidden accounts or assets we haven't discovered yet. She believes we have a strong case for getting back most of what I spent supporting the household, especially since we have evidence of David's deception with the hidden account. Some family members, mainly David's side, have been pressuring me to reconsider the divorce. They're saying I'm being too harsh and should give David another chance. His mother called me crying, saying David is depressed and that she's worried about him. She suggested that maybe he hid the money because he felt emasculated by having to rely on my income. But I refused to be manipulated again. Learning about what happened with Lisa made me realize that David hasn't changed and probably never will. He's not just bad at business, he's willing to take advantage of people who love him while pretending to be the victim. David keeps texting me that I'm misunderstanding everything. He claims the hidden account was meant to be a surprise fund to eventually pay me back. He says he only hid his previous business failure because he was ashamed of it and didn't want me to think less of him. But I don't believe any of his excuses anymore. Nathan is still texting me about tuition, but his tone has changed. Instead of apologizing, he's now trying to guilt me by saying I'm punishing him for his father's mistakes. He doesn't seem to understand that I'm not punishing anyone, I'm just refusing to be taken advantage of anymore. I'm staying firm in my decision to divorce David. However, I'm worried about the process ahead. David is already trying to minimize the amount he needs to repay me, claiming that his business was doing better than I knew and that I'm exaggerating how much I supported the household. I expect this to be a long and difficult battle, but I'm prepared for it. At least now I know the truth about everything, and I can stop feeling guilty about walking away. I think I actually owe Lisa an apology. I'd always felt like I was somehow disrespecting her memory by marrying David, but now I realize she probably would have wanted to warn me if she could. To those asking about legal action regarding the hidden account, yes, my lawyer is handling that aspect. She says the fact that he was hiding money while letting me support everyone will work in our favor during the divorce proceedings. Update 2: a lot has happened since my last update, and I need to get this off my chest. The divorce proceedings have started, and it seems like every week brings a new shocking revelation about David's deceptions. My lawyer's investigation into our finances uncovered something that made me physically sick. David had taken out several personal loans using our joint accounts as collateral, without my knowledge or consent. We're talking about nearly $50,000 in loans over the past year. He was essentially gambling with my money while pretending his business was just going through a temporary rough patch. The loan documents showed he had used the money for business investments, but when we dug deeper, we found most of it went to some questionable cryptocurrency investments, and a failed attempt to expand his business into a new market, all of which he had hidden from me. He lost almost all of it, and now these loans are affecting my credit score since they're tied to our joint accounts. Nathan reached out again last week. He's struggling to pay for college now that I'm no longer covering his tuition. He wanted to meet for coffee to discuss possible arrangements. I agreed to meet him, thinking maybe he had finally understood the gravity of the situation. The meeting was disappointing, to say the least. Nathan spent the first few minutes apologizing again for calling me a gold digger, but then quickly moved on to asking if we could work out some kind of payment plan for his tuition. When I suggested he take a semester off to work and save money, like many students do, he acted like I had insulted him. He said his mother would have never suggested something so beneath him, and that she would be disappointed in how I was treating him. I tried to explain to Nathan that his father's actions had put me in a difficult financial position too, especially with these newly discovered loans. But he wasn't interested in understanding my perspective. He just kept pushing about the tuition, saying things like we're still family and you promised to help with my education. When I remained firm about not paying, he stormed out of the cafe, calling me selfish and telling me I was just as bad as his father. But the biggest shock came from an unexpected source. Remember those mutual friends who were criticizing me for leaving David? Well, I found out through a colleague that David has been dating one of them, my former friend Rachel. Apparently, they started seeing each other just weeks after I moved out. Rachel had been one of the loudest voices telling me I should give David another chance and that I was being too harsh on him. This actually explains a lot. Rachel had been unusually interested in my marriage problems, always asking for details about my fights with David and offering to talk to him on my behalf. Now I wonder if she was just gathering information for him all along. The betrayal stings, but honestly, they deserve each other. The mediation sessions have been absolute nightmares. David is trying to claim that his business failures were partly my fault because I never believed in him and wasn't supportive enough. He's painting himself as the victim, saying I gave up on him when he needed me most. He conveniently leaves out the part about hiding money and taking out secret loans. His lawyer is arguing that since we were married, all decisions about money were joint decisions, even if I wasn't aware of them at the time. They're trying to say I should be partially responsible for the loans since they were taken out during our marriage. My lawyer says they're just trying to intimidate me into accepting a lower settlement. What's really frustrating is how David has managed to spin this story to our social circle. He's been telling everyone that I'm trying to bankrupt him out of spite, that I never supported his dreams, and that I'm trying to turn his son against him. Some people who I thought were friends are actually believing him, despite all the evidence of his deception. The only silver lining in all this is that Sarah, David's sister, has been incredibly supportive. She's been helping me document everything from the past few years and has even offered to testify about David's pattern of financial deception if needed. She feels guilty about not warning me earlier and wants to make things right. I've had to start seeing a financial advisor to figure out how to protect myself from these loans David took out. It's going to take months to sort out this mess and separate our finances completely. The advisor is helping me create a plan to rebuild my savings after everything I lost supporting David and Nathan. The hardest part of all this is realizing just how thoroughly David manipulated me. He knew exactly what he was doing when he hid money, took out loans, and let me support everyone while pretending his business was just temporarily struggling. Looking back, I can see all the red flags I missed because I wanted to believe in him. My lawyer thinks the divorce proceedings will take several more months, especially given how complicated David has made our financial situation. But I'm not backing down, no matter how hard he tries to paint me as the villain in this story. Update 3. This will probably be my final update. The divorce was finalized last week, and I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. The past 6 months have been a roller coaster, but I'm finally free. After months of legal battles, the court ordered David to repay me $175,000. This includes the household expenses I covered, Nathan's tuition, and my portion of the loans he took out without my consent. Since he can't pay the full amount at once, surprise, surprise, we worked out a payment plan. He'll be making monthly payments for the next 5 years. My lawyer made sure the agreement has strict penalties if he misses any payments. The investigation into the loans revealed even more deception. David had actually forged my signature on several documents. When confronted with this evidence, he tried to claim it was a misunderstanding and that he thought he had my verbal permission. The judge didn't buy it. This revelation actually worked in my favor during the final settlement negotiations. His business finally collapsed completely 2 months ago. He had no choice but to start looking for a regular job again. Last I heard, he's working as a junior marketing manager at a small firm, a significant step down from his previous executive position. He tried to use this as a reason to reduce his repayment obligations, but the court maintained the original agreement. His relationship with Rachel didn't last long. She dumped him when she realized he expected her to support him financially just like I had. She actually reached out to apologize to me, claiming she had no idea about the extent of his deception. I didn't respond. Some bridges stay burned. Nathan is taking a gap year to work and save money. He's working at a local restaurant and has finally gotten a taste of the real world. He sent me a long email last month, and unlike his previous attempts at apologizing, this one seemed genuine. He acknowledged how entitled and judgmental he had been, and how he had completely misread the situation. He even admitted that he had treated me badly long before the gold digger incident, mainly because he was afraid of someone replacing his mother. While I appreciate his apology, I've maintained my distance. Some wounds take time to heal, and I'm not ready to have any sort of relationship with him yet. I did reply to his email briefly, wishing him well and encouraging him to learn from this experience. He needs to understand that actions have consequences, and adult relationships require respect and honesty. David's behavior since the divorce has been exactly what you'd expect. He's been posting on social media about how I destroyed his dream and abandoned his family when they needed me most. He conveniently leaves out the part about his hidden accounts, forged loans, and years of letting me support everyone. Some mutual friends still believe his version of events, but I've blocked him and anyone who supports his narrative. I don't need that negativity in my life anymore. The most surprising development has been my relationship with Sarah, David's sister. She's become a close friend through all this. She recently revealed that David tried to borrow money from her after his business failed, using the same manipulative tactics he used with me. She refused and told him he needed to face reality and stop expecting others to fund his unrealistic dreams. As for me, I've moved to a new city for a fresh start. I found a better job with a significant pay raise, and I'm slowly rebuilding my savings. My new apartment is smaller than our old house, but it's all mine, and I don't have to support anyone else anymore. I'm focusing on my career and my own goals for the first time in years. This whole experience taught me a lot about setting boundaries and not letting anyone take advantage of my generosity. I now understand that supporting someone doesn't mean enabling their bad decisions, and that love isn't enough if there isn't mutual respect and honesty. To everyone who supported me through this journey, thank you. Your comments and messages helped me stay strong when I doubted myself. Sometimes walking away is the hardest but most necessary thing you can do. I'm ready to close this chapter of my life and move forward. As painful as this experience was, I'm grateful for the lessons it taught me about self-worth and standing up for myself.